Ahoy there. Welcome to an evening with Hamish Stansfeld. Please have a glass of wine. Make yourself comfortable. No, I'm just gonna have a drink and have a rant. So don't expect too much wisdom from this one. It's just me chatting. Sorry to disappoint. Although who knows? I might say something that you'll just go, yes. And then you'll start shaking and have a shift and just be like, I see God. I am God. Sorry, I'm being really silly. I've only had one glass. Yeah, I just kind of caved, and I've pretty much done dry January. Slipped up a couple of times, but for me, I was mostly spent the whole month sober and cut out the cannabis edibles for now. I'm not saying I won't go back to them and experiment at some point, but for now. And I'm also maybe 15, 16 days into semen retention, maybe a bit more even. And I think that trinity of cutting out the booze and the weed and retaining the semen has just made my Kriya go berserk. So I've handled it for a while, and then I caved today. I was just like, okay, I need a timeout, because it is just relentless. It is on a day like today, it is just non-stop. Like if I relax now, it starts up and it gets more and more intense, and it's great because you know it's doing you good. You know that this tension is nuts, is just cracking up and cracking open, and the energy just punches up with such ferocity, but it is exhausting. I mean, I've had no energy whatsoever at all these last few days, and I've barely been able to get out of bed. And I've heard people talking about this, but my energy's pretty much been stable these last 2 years in terms of just being able to, go to the shops, just have energy to, and then so I was like, I work with kids, so I was like, have I just picked up some bug from the kids? But it's like, no, this feels more like a Kundalini slump. I mean, don't get me wrong, maybe it's like it's spending so much energy doing what it's doing, there doesn't seem to be much left to do anything else, which is a bit worrying because I'm starting a yoga course in a week's time, training to be a yoga teacher, and I just really hope that by then I will have some energy, because I don't know where it's gone. Um, but I think that these Kriya take up a lot of energy because these head things that I'm doing, it goes on and on and on. And then today I've just been craving like bacon and fat, and I certainly don't feel like I'm putting on any weight. So I feel like my body is expending a lot of energy with this. Um, to pick up from, I'll take my glasses off. No, I won't. To pick up from my last video, sometimes I feel like I want to say something, and it's sort of, I'm trying to get something across. I'm just not quite sure what it is. And I don't know if that's just slipping up on language or. I might come back to that, but I was thinking about, I heard Frank Yan talking about Kundalini, and he was saying that essentially all it does, sounds very reductionist, but what it does is get rid of the conditioning in the body over time. That's its job, you could say. Um, And everyone's conditioned by their family, school, environment, the country that they were brought up in, finances, circumstances, and beyond that, your genes are going to be a certain way. None of these things are in your control. None of this conditioning has anything to do with you. It's conditioning, right? It's not chosen. And beyond that, the human condition is conditioned. um, and so Kundalini is getting rid of the conditioning. So what does that mean? What's left once you've got rid of conditioning? Well, I suspect that at some point, when you get down to the nitty-gritty of things, you get down to the sense of self, because my theory is that the very sense of me is also conditioning. Why? Because it's part of the human condition. Your tree doesn't have a sense of me, nor does an animal, I suspect, or a cloud. It's intrinsic to the human being. It's human conditioning. So if the Kundalini rather is going to get rid of the conditioning, at some point it's going to get to that very sense of me and get rid of that as well, because that's also conditioning. At which point, what's left once the windscreen has been completely wiped clean, I would suggest, is what people call samadhi. So it makes sense to me to say that Kundalini leads to samadhi eventually. I can see why people said that in the old text. That is the way it's described. Or it leads to the non-dual realization. Now, a radical non-dualist, of course, would say, well, no. Because non-duality is already the case. How could anything lead to non-duality if this is non-duality? If this is the natural state, how could anything lead to what is already? And I see their point. And I see how people could get attached to the idea of Kundalini leading them forwards in time to a realization, to attaining something later in time. Something that they're going to get that's going to be good, called samadhi. Attaining self-realization. The word attaining, I think we can basically just take it out of the language altogether, because there's definitely nothing to be attained. But I don't think it's wrong, this is just my opinion, but I don't think it's wrong to see Kundalini as a journey towards samadhi, because I think from the relative perspective it is so. It's just not, it's a journey of, it's a backwards journey. It's a journey of, for example, if you have a dirty windscreen on your car, you could see Kundalini as the windscreen wiper. Some people's goes droop, droop, droop. Mine goes da. But anyway, still, it's getting rid of the conditioning, the dirt. What's left afterwards is a clear mirror, a clear glass in which you can see your reflection clearly and fully. So do we say that the windscreen wipers and the cleaning led to a perfect, clear screen of samadhi? Or do we say that samadhi was already the case, the windscreen was clean the whole time, but there was crap in the way? So different ways of looking at essentially the same thing. But the reason I say this is that I think it's word I'm looking for. I think it's appropriate and allowed, and I think it is permissible once you've had a Kundalini awakening. If it's the full awakening, not Kundalini energetics or movement or experiences, and you'll probably know after a while if it is the real deal. I think it really is permissible to put your feet up and relax and just trust in what's happening. And I'm talking to myself as well as the two people who are listening, whatever. But I think it really is permission to just, take the weight off and just relax. And I'm amazed by how much trying I've still been doing these last 2 years since the awakening, trying to meditate, for example. That's been a big one. And it's just because meditation is so ingrained in the world of spirituality. I mean, you think of spirituality, you picture a guy meditating. So you go, meditating must be the way to self-realization. And so many people do approach it in that way. But it's not for everyone. And I really want to hammer in that point. And I've wrestled with this a lot. And I've come to the conclusion it's just not for me. And if that means not seeing the non-dual, not being self-realized, then it means not seeing that. I still think it's not for me. Do you know what I mean? Everyone's path is different. I swear that whenever I try to meditate, it feels like I'm trying to climb up a waterfall. The waterfall maybe could be seen as Shakti or life force. It just doesn't want me to do it. And I can almost see it, her looking at me going, what the fuck are you doing that for? And I'm only talking about me personally. Some people I think will be called to do it. And there might be moments where I'm just called to, there have been moments where I just want to sit quietly and then meditation descends upon me. I've never been able to instigate that in my whole life. I was a complete meditation failure on all levels. I have a very ADD brain. I cannot force myself into it. I cannot jackhammer my way into meditation. I can't do it with the best will and the best intentions. I kind of hate it. And also, it's even more difficult now because I can't. The minute I relax, it's just intense movement and kriya. So what kind of meditation are you going to have when you're gyrating around? It's not going to happen. So my approach has been yogic, movement-based yoga. I can do that. I'm good at that and I enjoy that. So I think if you're thinking about practices and you're wondering which one's right for you, I think, the simple truth is just go for what you enjoy. I love yoga. I wasn't intending to awaken my Kundalini doing yoga, but that is when it awakened. There's always been a connection between yoga and Kundalini. But if you love football, I mean, when I play football, the self goes out the window because there's so much joy in what I'm doing. So if you follow the joy, you're never too far away from joy. um, yeah, it just doesn't, it's just so counterintuitive to me personally to work at things. Even the word work, I've said this before, shadow work. There's no such thing as shadow work. I swear to God, there's no such thing. Who sits there and goes, come on, shadow, come. Maybe actually people who practice magic probably do that sort of thing. That's probably like a magical thing. But it's just stuff that comes up. So why is the word work there? Who's working? Like, just can we not? Terminology needs to go, man. No one's ever done any shadow work. And again, the word work bugs me. I find it really irksome. Because if you're working, in my definition of the word, you're not following your joy. I mean, I'm an actor. I decided to act and perform for a living because it was fun, you know? Not because it was work. I always avoided work. But, you know, for some people, the word work is associated with fun, working hard, lifting things. Like, yes, this is good. It's positive, as positive attributes. But for me, it just has negative attributes. That's why I don't like the word. But anyway, so, so yeah, there is no right way of approaching awakening. It really is. It varies from individual to individual. It really does. Which means there's no way of getting it wrong because there's no way of doing it right. But this idea of there being a right way to do it and a right way to go and the right thing to eat and the right approach to say, I don't know what I mean by that. The idea that there is a path, like a unanimous path, that we can all take together and agree upon, is just not the case. And sometimes even what happens is when you follow your own intuition, your own path, your own guidance, it can be very much at odds with what other people are doing and saying. And I feel a lot of judgment coming from people, even people in the quote unquote awake community, and friends and people that I can just see them going like, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to get high that much. You know, you're reaching too much. You're like, and this is kind of like I can just feel them as like, but what do you care what I'm doing? What is this supposed to? You know? And I think people are unconsciously a lot of the time have these supposed to programs running and they're just not aware of it and they project it onto you and they're like, he's not following the supposed to program. And I think people get a little bit triggered by that and confused. What can I say? I'm a rebel. I don't have anything more to say. I could just leave the video there, but I'm just going to turn this into a drunken rant. So feel free to stop the video now. Those are probably the most sensible things I'll say. In fact, I'm going to pause it just to listen to my friend's message. Yeah, I was just replying to my friend. Um,
this video feels like it has a nice completion about it, so I don't have anything else to say. So I will leave it there, and I might make a second part where I say different things.